Hello there ladies, gentlemen and all variations thereupon. For today's episode we're going to be making these magical bookshelves that float all on their own with no support. Well, not entirely true, but I'll show you how I did it with a bonus instruction on how to actually put up shelves at all. So as you can see, still moving in, but let's get started. The first part of making the bookshelf is to actually turn the books into shelves. The most important part in this and any project is to plan out exactly what you're going to do before you drill any holes. First thing you're going to need is an L bracket. L brackets are for mounting generally shelves to walls, and you mount them this way round so that this part drills into the wall, this sits under the shelf and takes the weight of whatever you put on it. We're actually going to reverse that and put it this way around, and these are going to sit inside the cover of the book. So basically it sits against the wall like that. Then when you put other books or other objects in front of these brackets, they become hidden and it looks like you've got a set of books that are just floating there on the wall. So the first step is to don't do what I just did and hold the book upside down. Make sure you've got your book the right way around when you're planning this out, so that when you've got it on the wall any text is the right side up. Take your L bracket and place it against the book itself. Now we want to keep it as flush as possible, so if you hold it this way around and let gravity pull down on the bracket so that it sits flush against the cover, and you'll see then that the holes line up on the outside. So once you've got that in the position you want, gravity holding it down, take a pencil, something that you can erase. It doesn't matter so much with a dark covered book like this, but if you've got something light, you don't want to put an ink mark on there. So what you want to do is place your little finger on the actual bracket and then manipulate the pencil to mark on first the two lines either side of where the bracket sits. So now we've got a mark so that whenever we take the bracket away and put it back again, as long as we line it up with those two marks we've just made, we know that it's going to line up completely. And that being the case, now we just need to mark on the other side of the cover. We do need to mark both sides. Now that we've got those marked on, and we can always make sure that we can move that back to exactly where it needs to be, we can place our finger on it and hold it in position and rearrange the book so that gravity is then pushing it this way around, and we'll mark on where the holes are going to be. Draw little circles and be careful as you're drawing that you're not pulling the bracket left and right, which is very difficult when you get further down the bracket because you're further away from the pivot point. So you might want to, if you're close enough to the edge, place another finger, your thumb, on it to stop it wobbling. So then what you'll have is a series of circles going down the length of the book that tells you exactly where you're going to drill. So the next step is to place the bracket on the inside of the book. Now, books aren't really intended to have weight placed upon them, so you need to make sure that if you've got a bracket with a long and a short side, most have the same length each side. So if you've got the two different lengths, make sure that you put the long side on the inside of the book so that it covers the greatest depth, so that when you put weight on there it doesn't cause the book to bend and sag at one end because the metal bar reaches virtually all the way down. And to make sure we've got it in the right place, what we do is we line up the bracket with the marks that we made on the edge of the cover. So as long as we've got the bracket placed flush against the cover, the hard cover this side, then all of the dots should be in a line that we've drawn on down there with the holes on the inside of the bracket. Right, so now the bracket's in place, we're going to take some clamps and clamp these down. If you want to do a really pristine job, you might want to cut out some of the internal pages so that the brackets can sit in more snugly. I find it's not really necessary, but you do need to make sure that everything is clamped down well. So we don't want anything moving around, and we want all the paper on the inside to act as if it's one block of wood. So when it comes to choosing screws, you want one that's long enough to go through virtually all of the paper without being so long as it's poking out the other end, and I find it's not usually necessary to pre-drill any holes. So your bookshelf's complete and you can just hang it like a regular shelf. Now, not everyone knows how to properly hang and mount a shelf, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, it doesn't make you any less of an adult. It's just that, you know, you weren't taught this up until now, so let's give a crash course on how you would hang a shelf. I always recommend making the shelf up first so that you can mark out exactly where all the drill holes are going to be accurately. against the wall. But once that's done, you need to get yourself one of these. This is a metal pipe / stud / electrical cable detector, because the one thing you don't want to do is drill directly into a water pipe or an electrical cable and knock out your electricity or flood your house. So get yourself one of these. If you live in a region like America or Australia where you have timber frame construction, then you need to make sure that when you're drilling your shelf in, you're actually drilling into a timber beam and not the drywall that goes over the top of it, because if you put too much weight on the shelf, then it'll pull the whole wall down or a big chunk of it down. You want to make sure you're drilled into the actual frame so that can take the weight. And I'm not going to show you exactly how you use these because each manufacturer will have different instructions, but basically the general gist of it is you turn it on, place it against the wall, make sure it's in the mode that you want, press a button to calibrate it. Once it's calibrated, you move it around until it finds something. If it finds an electrical cable, it will generally give you a signal because that's the main big worry one. You can set it to metal so that you can find pipes and such, and you can check the depth with various different gauges so you can find where your studs are. Because this is a British home, it tends to be either brick or concrete construction. This is brick, this is an outside wall, so there shouldn't be any cables or pipes in it. I've already checked, and there's no cables and no pipes in this wall, so I'm good to go. The next step is to decide where you want your shelf to go. Now I've got 3 shelves, so I'm going to have to plan carefully. As I said earlier, I want them below eye level. Generally, this one with the darker cover can get away with putting higher because you're not really going to notice the screws unless you're really close and looking. So decide where you want it. Once you're comfortable with the positioning, you can either go by eye, which I don't recommend, but you get yourself a spirit level, and use the power of bubble to make a level shelf. So you can put round things on there without them rolling off. So once you're happy where everything is and it's level, then you take your pencil and you mark on where the screw holes are going to be, and that'll be the sites at which you drill. Now when we drilled into the wall, what we want to use is these little plugs to help stabilise it. Because this is a brick wall, it can tend to crumble. We want to have something that the actual screw can bite into, so we've got these little plugs that will go in. And to make sure that I'm going to drill the correct length, I'm going to use that to measure up against the drill bit. And once I'm happy with the length, then we're going to place some tape around the outside. This is 3 centimetres long, so I can just measure 3 centimetres, but if you haven't got a ruler, use the plug as a guide. And now I know, so long as I drill in up until this tape, that I'm not going to go too deep into the wall for the plug. And there we have it, magical floating bookshelves. And these bring a nice little bit of wonder to an otherwise bland part of the room. Good for a child's room, I think, just to have these sort of things floating. If you have magical spell books or something piled up, then you can make it look quite wondrous. But there we have it, nice, quick, simple build, and anyone can do this, provided you're careful with your wiring when you're screwing it into the wall. If in doubt, do what I did when I was a teenager and just screw it to the side of your wardrobe. You're not going to hit any wires then. And that's it for this week. Until next time, remember never to lose your dinosaur.